Hello everyone, and welcome to the DELMIAWorks Quality Management Advanced Certification series of videos. Today we're going to talk about that function in DELMIAWorks where you set up and use quick inspections. Inspection setups and quick inspections work together to allow users to consistently check the quality of items during the manufacturing process. These details are created in the inspection setup module, and once those inspections are established, the user only needs to enter the data in the desired parameters to be measured, and then that data is automatically transferred to our statistical process control analysis database. So let's go ahead and take a look at our topics and agenda for today's session on using quick inspections. First of all, we want you to understand the importance of the quick inspection setup module. Now, this is critical that we get this right for any particular part or process that you might want to have inspections on any particular item, or we'll talk about adding the parameters and the inspection groups to this particular module to make your quality inspections valid and that you have good data going forward. Secondly, we want you to know the types of quick inspections that can be used, and you'll see that we can have inspections for master inventory parts, for AKA buying and selling items. Your engineering quote's going to have an inspection setup, your work centers, and processes. So we have multiple different types of inspections that can be used based on your process. Third, we want you to understand the relationship between inspection parameters and inspection groups. This is another critical step there, that initially you're going to set up your inspection parameters, basically saying what are we measuring or what are we evaluating, those parameters, and then we attach those parameters to inspection groups to make the inspection process more efficient. Fourth, we'll identify the modules where quick inspections can happen, and basically that's in our purchase order receiving module, our assembly data tablet function, our shop data tablet function in real time, and of course from our quality management menu and launcher bar. Fifth, we'll actually demonstrate the data input and the features for quick inspection. So you'll actually get to see the system working in real time. With that, let's jump into our demonstration today on using quick inspections in DELMIAWorks. As you can see, I'm on the main launcher bar in DELMIAWorks, and I'm on the Quality Module tab. If I hover over the file folder there with a little piece of paper, that is our inspection setup module. We're going to take a quick tour of that, and then we're going to go over to our quick inspection module to actually demonstrate the quick inspection functionality. So back on our quick inspection setup, I'm going to open that up. And when we open that up, you'll see all the different inspection setup types that we could do. Everything from a CRM opportunity all the way down to work centers and in between. Today we're going to focus on the master inventory type of inspection setup, so I'm going to highlight that. And it comes up to our inventory pick list, and you can see that I do have our medical tray highlighted, and that's the part that we are going to use for our example today. If I open that up, it's going to open up our inspection setup screen. Up above, you can see in the header information, it gives us the general information, but all the action, so to speak, happens at the bottom half of the screen. And in that section, that is where our parameters for this particular inspection are created or added to this inspection. So when we actually perform the quick inspection, that these parameters are already available. Now you can theoretically have as many different inspection parameters as you can logically use and maintain for a particular item, in this case our medical tray. You can see in our example today we actually have 6 parameters with various different features based on the type of parameter. First of all, you'll see that in this example we have basically 3 different types of parameters. We have a variable type, which you can see here, which is quantifiable. Basically, there's some way to measure and verify these variable parameters. We have an attribute, which is basically a pass-fail, a yes or no. Such things as color and quality and other features that are not quantifiable could be used as an attribute. And you can see for our medical tray, we have color as an attribute type of parameter. And then we have one more down here that is a calculated. And we can take two or more of our other variable attributes up above and then have a formula that would then calculate another parameter that would be used in the inspection setup. And you can see that these different parameters, again using our color chips, will give you quick identification of what kind of parameter they are. As well, over to the right here, we have more details on each of our parameters, and we have some tabs here. In this general tab, you can see that the parameter name, the type it is, you can see this is a variable. You can have a classification of parameters. Here we have minor, major, and critical, or none. So based on the type of parameter it is for your reporting. And then for a variable parameter, you can have the actual numerical values, a lower specification limit, a target value, and then a upper specification limit, as well as the unit of measure and other features. Also, we have various checkboxes, as you can see down here, if we want it to be available for our SPC module. And in process logs, is it a calculated? And we can see that this particular one that we are highlighted on is a calculated variable. If I click on one of the other parameters, you can see that that flag for calculated parameters would not be checked, as you can see right there. And then some other features as it pertains to SPC calculation, which additional information can be found in our help menu. And then we have some other tabs, some instructions here. We can put some specific instructions, an inspection image, which is very helpful, an approval tab here that once we create a parameter, we can go in and approve it. We can approve those parameters one at a time, or if we come over here to this speed button, we can approve all parameters at once. And then we have a real-time tab over again to the right there if we wanted to have it monitored in real time, and then as usual some of our user-defined fields and forms. And then lastly, before we go down to the bottom section, we can see that we do have some speed buttons here for our parameters. We can clone a parameter if I click on this little speed button here, or I can append parameters from another inspection setup, basically add them from another one and bring them across, or I can append these parameters to a new item if they would apply there, again saving you some time. We have our directional arrows that can move certain parameters up or down based on the order that you might want them in. And then lastly, we can hide obsolete parameters that may not be required anymore, as you can see over in this column over here. Now, for instance, if I change a parameter, I'll just go ahead and change one just so you can see what might happen here. And I'm going to save that one. And notice now it is turning yellow, which again our color chips come into play and gives us a good hint of what's going on. And we can see that this dimension has not been approved. And before we could use this in a quick inspection, we would have to have any of these parameters approved before we could move forward. So again, I could come over here and click my approval tab there and then check the approval checkbox there. And now again, it is an approved and color-coded appropriately. The second critical part to set up our quick inspections is going down and identifying our inspection groups, again for each of our records, in this case our medical tray. You can see down below that we have our inspection groups tab there, and then we have 4 different types of inspections listed down below. Again, this is based on this particular item. We could have more or less based on other items that you may have inspections set up for. So the key thing is to go in and identify which of these inspection groups you need. These are user-defined groups. You can define and create them on the fly, so to speak, and have them there. And if at some point you don't need that particular inspection anymore, just like any other record in most other DELMIAWorks modules, you could go in and you could delete it, or we could add a new record here. So for instance, if I click on the name here, you can see that our little blue diamond there appears, which is the universal sign in DELMIAWorks for user defined. And so if I click on that and right click, it says edit user defined list. And then here is our list of our inspection groups that we have in the system so far. Now again, you'll see that I do have 5 total groups set up in my setup inspection module. However, for this particular item, our medical tray, we are only going to need 4 of our inspection groups for this particular item. Again, you can have as many inspection groups set up as you can reasonably use in your system, but that's how you would set them up and identify them initially. I'm going to get out of there. We're going to stay with this particular 4, our startup inspection, our in-process inspection, first article inspection, and then our final inspection for our medical trays. So again, defining these individual inspection groups, we go across and we can see that we can add a description here beyond the name. There is a sample type, and there are 2 different sample types. We can have a subgroup or individuals. Our individuals is a measurement that is free from a rational subgrouping, so to speak. Each measurement is taken as time progresses and can have its own set of circumstances. Subgroups are identified which contain data of a similar short-term setting. For instance, maybe 1 lot, 1 shift, or 1 operator. So that's the difference between an individual sample type and a subgroup sample type. And then going on over, we have the sample count, which is for this particular inspection. How many samples do we need to take for this particular inspection group? And you can see that we have a couple of 3 and a couple that are going to require 5 samples during that inspection. If I go ahead and scroll over, you'll see some other fields here. Now for our customers that are using this in conjunction with real-time, we have some real-time settings here for run hours, parts produced, and then some real-time process maintenance information and work center information. Again, great functionality here, and if you want to know more about these particular features with real-time, our help documentation does an excellent job of outlining and defining those features. We can inactivate a particular inspection group if we want to. And then we have a variable sample count feature, which the system would actually go in and determine the number of sample counts you would need for each inspection group. So you can do it manually. If I come back over here, we can see that we have set them sample counts manually, but we can also have the system do it here. And again, that is explained in more detail in our help documentation. And then we have several columns with check boxes, as you can see. If we needed this inspection to have an approval required by a second person, well, then we would go ahead and add that and put that checkbox in there, and then a second pair of eyes, so to speak, would need to approve that particular inspection group when that unit or this item is inspected. If we want the work order required, then we would click on that, and when we start the quick inspection, a pick list of work orders for this item, in this case our medical tray, would appear, and we would have to populate it with the correct work order. Same is true from our tool. If the tool is mandatory, a pick list of tools and fixtures in our MRO module would then appear to choose the appropriate tool. And if inspection is required, that would basically give you a hard stop when it comes to the point to inspect that. A pop-up message would show and then said that this inspection is required. And then the last 2 columns you can see are very similar in that we have our first case and our last case, and if those were highlighted with a check mark, then what would happen when we schedule a work order, say put it into position 1 on our schedule, if this first case was clicked, then we would get a message that a quick inspection is required. And similarly, when we were going to remove a work order from the schedule, we would also get that same message that said, hey, before you remove this work order, there is an inspection that is due. So those checkboxes again come in very handy about helping you maintain the right frequency and the right timing for your inspections based on the inspection group. The last thing you need to do after you've created your inspection groups is basically tell them, well, which parameters up above are going to apply to this particular inspection group. So you can see over to the left I've highlighted my startup inspection, and we can see that we have 3 different parameters, basically our 2 length parameters and then a calculated parameter based on those 2 individual parameters. If we go to our in-process inspection, you can see that we just have 2 parameters, one for length and one for width, and our first article is pretty much the same, although we've added the color parameter with the attribute of the data type there that is included in our first article inspection. And in our final inspection, again, we have the combination of the color and the weight for that particular inspection group. So again, after you've defined your inspection groups, then you need to go in and see which of the parameters up above that you will need to include on that particular inspection group. So for instance, if I'm highlighted on the in-process inspection here and I did want to include the attribute of color, the parameter of color, I can click and drag it down here and now it's added in there. So again, very easy to manage these and maintain these based on the parameters and your inspection groups. And know that you can have the same parameter involved in several different inspection groups, as you've probably already noted. The last thing I want to note here before we actually go into a quick inspection is that we do have one more tab here. It is our Gauges and Devices tab here. And we have added, in this case, a caliper to this particular inspection setup for our medical tray. And this is a great feature, assuming that you do have your gauges and your devices set up for your quality system. And then you can go in there and select them and add them from that list of gauges that have already been set up, and now they're attached to this particular inspection setup. So now let's go in and actually demonstrate a quick inspection since we have our inspection setup all ready to go. Again, back on our main launcher bar in the quality module, and now it's actually time to perform a quick inspection. I'm going to come over here and we see the little chart with the sparkly wand there. It says quick inspection. I'm going to open that up. Again, it's going to ask us which type of inspection are we going to do. We are going to say we're going to do a master inventory. It opens up the next screen there, and then it comes up and says, well, who is going to actually perform this inspection? And we can choose from employees or team members. I'm going to choose from team members, and we're going to say that Pepper Anderson, our machine operator, is actually going to perform this quick inspection. The next screen up, it says, okay, which item, you chose item for the type, which item are you going to do the inspection for? And again, we are going to stay with our medical tray there. And then it says, well, okay, you've decided that you're going to do an inspection on your medical tray. Which inspection group or which inspection are you going to use? And again, these inspection groups kind of determine when and or where a particular inspection is going to be done. I'm going to say this is going to be my first article inspection. But before I go there, you'll notice that I do have a past inspections button there. Well, that's kind of handy. I'm going to open that up and I can see the past inspections for our medical tray here, inspection groups that were done, and if I had a pass fail there, looks like my batting average for our medical tray isn't so great there. Red is never good. And we have some that have failed, and fortunately some that actually have passed. Okay, that's fine. I don't want to actually go in and look at those past inspections. I'm just going to create a new one for our first article inspection. I'm going to say OK. Then it comes up and it says, okay, we've already attached a gauge or device here, your micrometer in this case. Is that okay? I'm going to say, yep, that is fine. We could change it here if we wanted to. And now we've come up to our main screen for the actual quick inspection. So let's talk about what some of these sections of this screen include. You can see here that the system will automatically give us a group number. Okay, that is a non-editable field. The system generates that. And then you can add the finished good lot number, the serial number. We see the sample type for this particular inspection group is an individual sample type. We could add our bill of material number, the work order number. If this was a PO receipt type of inspection, we could add the receipt number there. And then we can have the tool, the work center, and even some customer information there. A user-defined note if we needed it. And then you can see the date stamp is there and the user ID that created this particular inspection and who is actually doing the inspection and the inspection type there. All of that is included. And then on the inspection setup, if we had that flag or that checkbox for inspection approved by, then that would also be active there. We did not check that box, so that's why it is inactive in this case. And then going on down to the bottom section there, we see the parameters for, in this case, our first article inspection. Now, in this case, you'll see that there are no plus or minus signs. You cannot add or delete a parameter from this inspection. That was set up on the inspection setup module, which, if you think about it, kind of makes sense. We don't want our operators on the fly changing the parameters on an individual inspection. And then over to the right, you can see the other various different tabs there and notes that would have, again, be set up on the setup inspection module. And then in the upper right, you can see that we have the actual area where the input for the inspection is going to take place, inputting our data. And we have some flexibility here. You can see in this case the display is by the sample, and if I come over we have sample number 1, and if I click the little arrow down there we can see that we have sample 1 through 5 there for our length. Now, if I go down and I click on sample number 2, then you'll notice that down below the detail, the sample number changes with the same parameters that we had. So that rule follows through here all the way through if we have the display by sample set over here. Now, if I change that to actually parameters, now you can see that our parameter has changed. We are now viewing the parameters and we have all 5 samples for the length. So depending on how you actually take the samples, you may want to change back and forth. So for instance, if we had for our medical tray here, we had 5 medical trays and we were going to take our length all at once, we would probably want to view it this way and then go in and change our parameter to the width, and you can see that it changed there. And then lastly, again, very similarly, we could change to our color. So again, changing your display by sample or by parameter based on how you want to enter the data and what's more efficient for you. Now, before we actually go in and enter the data, let's look at some of the other features on this particular menu here, or look at our menus, I should say. We can see that we have the file menu, and again, we could search by different features here. We could look at our past inspections, and we can actually go to a control plan for this item if we had a control plan set up for our medical tray. If I go to view, we can take a look at our different types of view here of our individual charts, either an individual trend chart and that would show the data after it's been entered, or these other features here for a trend chart, and you can see the other choices that we could view these particular charts after we've entered the data. And we'll display that in a little bit after we have entered some of our sample data. And then we have some options here. We can show these various different charts at startup here. all these quality charts that you may want to use at startup. So we do have those options in the menu items. If we look at our speed buttons, we can go over, and again we can search for control plans for this item. We can have a real-time chart for data analysis as we enter the data, which we will demonstrate in a minute. We can print labels. We can print an inspection sample log report, as you'll see. And if this was a receiving inspection that was completed, then we could reset the inspection due alert directly from here. And then lastly, if we were doing multiple inspections for the same item, if we have this green arrow highlighted, it would carry over the inspection details to the next record. So now let's go in and actually add some data into our inspection for our medical tray. I'm going to do the length here, and you can see that for this demonstration I'm going to do all 5 of the lengths at once because that's going to be more efficient for me. So I'm going to go ahead and enter in those measurements for the length. I'm going to start popping them in there, and you can see as I go in that you hear that little chirp. You can actually turn that chirp off. Whoops, look at there, we had something that was below our lower specification limit there. Okay, we know that, and it turns it red. And then lastly, I'm going to put my last measurement in there for my length. Now I could have gone over here and again put a sample comment in there, and once again you can see that is a user defined list that we could go in there and add a comment. So I'm going to go in and add that comment on the fly there. Next I'm going to go in, and this time I'm going to actually record my attribute parameter. Notice now the variable field for the values there is grayed out. We cannot enter any values in there because this is the attribute parameter. And so I'm going to go in and I'm going to say my first sample was fine. I'm going to say a pass. In fact, guess what? This time they're all going to pass there. And notice that sometimes that it will jump back and forth there. And if I go back and I need to go back to my color again and then highlight it, save it. So good news. Looks like our medical trays passed the color test. Now lastly, I'm going to go in and add the variable data for my width parameter. And I want to show you another feature here. We're going to click our charts for real-time data analysis here. And I'm going to choose my individuals charts. And it brings up this screen here. And I'm going to do this side by side as I enter the data so you can see the changes. Now you'll notice this chart, this individual chart that I chose here. First of all, it has our length parameters there that we have, and if I scroll down we can see that our widths down below are now visible. And as I enter the variables for the width, you'll see that the chart changes in real time with those particular variables. So I'm going to go ahead and do that there, and you'll see that once again it starts populating our chart as we enter that particular data. So again, a nice feature there that shows you real time what's happening with your specific chart and gives you a great visual whether you are above or below your targeted specification limit there. Now lastly, I do want to show you there's one other speed button here. I'm going to get out of our chart and go over. There is a little printer icon up there that says Print Inspection Sample Log Report. And I'm going to go ahead and click on that. It gives us the sample group number there, or I should say the group number. And we are on group number 9. And I'm going to go ahead and print this to the screen so you can see what that particular feature looks like. So as you can see, there is our sample inspection log with the data that we put in for this particular inspection. It gives us that quick look at how we turned out on this particular inspection. So that is a look at, number one, setting up our inspections and then taking those inspections that we set up and actually entering that data in our quick inspection module. So let's take a look at our top 5 takeaways for today's recording on using quick inspections in DELMIAWorks. First, inspection setup is key for any item, process, work center, or other area where you might want to evaluate your quality process in your manufacturing environment. Getting these inspection setups will create parameters and inspection groups. As we see down in the second bullet, those parameters then are created and attached to inspection groups. And in the system, you can literally have unlimited parameters and unlimited inspection groups to efficiently evaluate the criteria that you've set for those areas. Third, quick inspections can be initiated from the real-time module, shop data, assembly data, the PO receiving module, and then obviously the quality module also. We can initiate any of our quality inspections from those areas in the software. Fourth, various charts can be viewed as the data is being entered, and I think we saw that when we were plugging in our data for our lengths or our widths on inspection that we showed. We saw that we could view the data after it's been entered, and we can actually view the data as it's being entered on a real-time basis. And then lastly, quality data is instantly available for the SPC module and the calculations in that module. There's no manual transferring of data from the quality inspection to the SPC data. That module automatically has that data available and starts the calculations for your additional quality analysis. I hope you've received great value by viewing this video. If you would like individual targeted training on this topic, you can contact our training coordinator at the email listed here. We can then provide a special session for your team using your data. This is a great way to address your specific concerns using this module. As well, you can always go to our website and see a calendar of our standard scheduled training sessions in DELMIAWorks. Thanks again for being an awesome DELMIAWorks customer. Please look for other related recordings in our video library. Here's wishing you a great day and a great business.